when you're asking any questions. I just want to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Dallas James and I'm the Programme Lead for the Digital Health Ecosystem in Wales. And we decided to hold this event today, the skills, talent and ways to develop it, based on feedback really that we've been receiving when we talk to people in health and social care around the introduction of more and more digital tools within those areas. And really there were three recurring themes being mentioned. The first being digital skills of staff. And we really need to build a better understanding and awareness of possibilities that digital and cutting edge AI can bring to health and social care services. And we know that staff and patients as well are great innovators, and it's their observations and knowledge of practice that are going to enable great co-design of digital and AI solutions. Something else that's always mentioned is around recruitment and how difficult it is to recruit people into the informatics field to support new technology being introduced. And then finally, I've also heard from people working in health and social care who've been using various digital and AI tools, and they're looking for qualifications to accompany their knowledge and expertise of working with them. So after a conversation with Rhys, we thought it would be a great idea to hold this event and explore some of the solutions that are available to people through the Open University in answer to these problems. I don't know about you, but I don't know, the last few weeks I seem to have sat through lots and lots of PowerPoint presentations. And so today we thought we'd shake it up a little bit. And we're going to try something different. So I'm really hoping that this works and you get everything that you want to get out of it. We want this to be as interactive as possible, but we're going to go for a bit of a fireside chat. So I'm going to introduce Rhys from the Open University, and I'm going to ask Rhys a few questions. And I really just want to encourage you to pop your hand up or write questions in the chat, because we really do want to hear from you to make this work. So Rhys, lovely to have you with us this afternoon. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and also the Open University in Wales?
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Dallas. Diolch yn fawr, and prynawn da everybody, and thank you for having me on the session today. So I'm Rhys Griffiths. I'm the Business Relationship Manager for the Open University in Wales. My role is to engage with employers from across the nation who would like to work with the Open University. So that could be across a number of different things. So it could be around how can you access one of our academics. It could be looking at how can we support your employees, your teams with their sort of skills needs and their educational needs, and giving you the options that perhaps you weren't aware of at the OU, and how we can support that. So that's my role in a nutshell. I'm part of a bigger team. I'm part of the Open University in its wider sense as well, and we're across all 4 nations, and we have an office in each of those, with the main campus, as many of you might be aware, based in Milton Keynes. For those of you that don't know much about the Open University, we were founded by Sir Harold Wilson over 50 years ago on the notion of a university of the air. So that was the idea, and everything that we do now with it, sort of digital delivery, that's very much the message is that we can come to you and offer a university wherever you are. And I think one of the key things for us at the Open University and our mission really is to help people meet their ambitions, but also to give people the opportunity to access higher education at whatever stage in life they are. And lifelong learning and the ability to provide lifelong learning is really at the core of what we're all about.
Great, thank you. So my first sort of real meaty question for you, Rhys. I mentioned earlier that people are finding it really difficult to find the best talent possible in the highly competitive digital field. And often this is a lengthy and quite costly process. And what ways can employers ensure that they retain and develop their talent?
Yeah, no, you're right, Dallas. It is highly competitive at the moment, I think, across lots of sectors, but particularly sort of within the digital side of things. And I think what the pandemic has shown as well, that we can work at a distance, we can work effectively, and particularly across the sort of digital roles as well. Now you don't necessarily need to be in the same city, region, or even country as where your workplace is. That's how we sort of adapted, and probably things have accelerated quite a bit with that. But also, I think from a Welsh perspective, that perhaps has raised the competition to attract the best talent to your business. So I think it's really important that once you have that talent, you look at the ways that you can retain them and continuously develop them. And I think just from conversations that I have had with employers, I think some of the things that they are doing and that work for them are around setting clear pathways, clear growth plans for those individuals, and really putting them at the heart of what the business is all about, and also giving that particular individual sort of ownership really over their career, and giving them the opportunities then to develop in the way that they want to. So it's not only encouraging that individual to grow, but also seeing how they fit into the organization is really important. And I think from our perspective, the opportunity to learn is a big part of that growth process. And we've sort of been talking, and we speak to employers, and we're working with some around this concept of using learning as a benefit. Now, lots of people, when they offer benefits, the opportunity to train is there. But I think, often, and there's nothing wrong with this, it's about the technical role. And that's really important, giving people that opportunity to grow in their career. But it's also, I think, looking at learning in its wholeness, as not just to be in the opportunity to develop that technical skill and develop your career, but also how do you develop yourself as a person, and how do you become a more rounded person? Because I think, again, that all adds to the growth of that individual, makes them a more rounded person, and also sees you as the company of sort of investing in their skills, but also them as an individual. I think that's really important. And I think more and more now, when you talk about well-being and that sort of thing, that learning and encouraging sort of self-development is a big part of that, and should be encouraged, really. And I think employers that perhaps look at that, how you become a better person, are going to attract talent, potentially retain that talent, because they see the opportunity that they've got there. So I think that those are sort of key. And to give you an example of where we've sort of seen this at the OU, we've been working with a famous online brand in Uber, whereby they have been, part of their benefit system is around looking at how can they offer opportunities to their drivers, give them opportunities to study a degree, and they do that for them. But the added benefit of that is that should that benefit not be useful for them as the driver, that can then go out and be offered to a family member as well. So again, the individual actually benefits from that, but also their family, and obviously they've had somebody to pay for that degree of a family member is extremely valuable. But it's also an investment by Uber in the person and what's important to them, which is what really stands out. So yeah, I think it's, from my point of view, and it's probably obvious that I'd say this, learning is a big part of that, but it's almost about that self-development, that growth. How can you have an impact on that person and help them reach their aspirations as well?
That's great. We have actually got a question, or we've got a couple of questions. So Chris is asking, may I ask, how do the fees work? Would this be something for that the employer pays, the student, or a mixture of costs?
Okay, yeah, so straight in there, Chris. So really, I think when it comes to fees at the OU, we have employers that are paying fees for their staff, and they will pay those direct or on a sponsorship basis, we would call that. There are also ways that the individual can access grants and also access student loans as an individual that they could use to pay towards those fees as well. And certainly, if there is, if you're looking at a way that we can sort of share that payment between the employer and the employee, then obviously that's something that we can talk to you about. I don't know if that sort of helps, Chris, in terms of the fees. We've got some. There's a lot of information on the website. There are a number of grants like I said, that can help cover the cost of living, which people can apply for as individuals as well. So we can, after this, I know Delith and the team are looking to send some information out. So we'll make a note, and I can put some information about fees and funding that's available for people as well, if that helps.
That's really helpful. Thanks, Rhys. And apologies for putting that in really early. I should have waited till it's past.
Right. No problem. No, it's good.
Thanks. We've got another question as well. We've got one from Ryan. So he says, given the challenges around recruitment, a lot of organisations are finding it difficult to backfill staff who leave, which increases the demand upon staff left behind. In that kind of situation, do you have any novel suggestions for how staff can continue to develop themselves whilst under increased pressures in their day job?
Yeah, I think flexibility is key here. And I think, obviously if people are leaving, and it does happen, that will put pressure on the existing staff. And I think from an OU's perspective, the idea is to enable people to study at their own pace and giving them the opportunities and, when needed, the support to adapt what needs to take precedence. So for me, I always talk about there's three things when it comes to learning that sort of need balancing, and it's your individual life and your personal circumstances, it's your studies, and it's also your work. And at certain times during that journey, they're going to be out of balance, and one's going to take more than the other. And I think what we try to do at the OU is to look at, okay, how can we make learning fall into line with how your life fits? So that could be that you study one module a year, for example, and you which could be 60 credits, and that then is what you do each year. That's one module, and then you're taking sort of 6 years to complete your degree, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of support there for it. I think it's when you access learning as well. With the OU, you are learning in an online environment. There are live sessions that you can tune into, but if you miss those, you can get a recording for those, and you can access that whenever you need to. Everything you need in terms of resources and books, they're all included in the sort of platform that the students will log into. So hopefully that means that balancing becomes easier again, because you're not going to university a day of the week. You are you're studying at the time that suits you the most. So if it's at 3 o'clock in the morning, then crack on. I wouldn't at 3 o'clock in the morning, but if that suits you, and in some professions it might, it might be that suits you, particularly if you're working in the sort of the small hours of the morning, logging on at that time might just be part of your normal day, and it suits you to do that. So I think having that flexibility is key. And I think as well, from an employer's perspective, is recognizing that you've got staff who are doing something here to better themselves, which potentially is going to have an impact on you as well, and giving them that opportunity and understanding that they are doing some learning. I think particularly from our experiences of the degree apprenticeship, and we're going to probably touch on that later on, but it's certainly about what opportunities in the learning that they're doing, particularly if it's work related, how could you help bring that to life and bring the learning to life, so it sort of becomes part of what they're doing day to day, as well as part of their study with sort of live examples. So I hope that helps.
Great, thank you. We've got one more question, one from Alan. Are there any initiatives in Wales to offer remote access to education and training in rural communities to mitigate the need to relocate, particularly for young people leaving for university education?
Yeah, I think again I should touch on this in terms of the reach of the OU. I think if you look at where we are, we're based in Cardiff, so we are Welsh University here, but we're not campus delivery. So we have students in every single constituency in Wales. So our reach is far and wide. And I always say to people, when we've talked before about local universities, I think when you look at the OU, we're everybody's local university, to the point where we're on your kitchen table, on your laptop, and you're studying. That's how local we are. So hopefully that means that certainly people who are in rural areas who perhaps are thinking of, I need to go to the university, I need to get closer to that, that there isn't, we give them an option that they don't have to move out of area. They can stay in that area and study with the OU because of that flexibility, because of that online access. And certainly, I know, again, with some employers, that has helped them with sort of recruitment of people within the business as well. So the fact that they're able to offer, opportunities to study.
So you've talked about the recruitment element, and Ryan asked a really great question there around the backfilling and making sure that staff can continue to develop themselves. Sort of following on from that, what do you feel are some of the other challenges that employers are facing today when it comes to that skills development of the staff? So especially really around technology developments and these newer ways of working that we're seeing now being implemented.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, we have every year we release a business barometer, and I think sort of just under half of Welsh businesses that were surveyed in that, they sort of they said that they failed to meet growth targets because of the skills shortage, and that upskilling and attracting and retaining talent is still a real priority for them. So I think that's that just sort of emphasizes really that one of the main sort of challenges that employers are facing. I think particularly within technology and in the digital aspect side of things is that everything develops so fast, and that it can be quite challenging for organizations to keep up, particularly organizations that perhaps aren't traditionally a tech business, perhaps, and always trying to keep up. And that can have an impact on where you sit within the supply chain and how you keep up with that sort of thing. So I think that's really difficult. And I think then with those technological advancements, and you look at digital skills, you can sort of see them in two different ways. You can see them from I need the technical ability. We need people who have got knowledge of AI. We've got software engineers, your coders, people who can set up digital infrastructure. Those sort of technical skills. But you've also got that other side of it, which many of us have learned over the last 2 years, is to be more digitally literate. We're all using things like this now, Teams and Zoom and whatever else is out there. We're all doing that now, but before, I would say 90% of my meetings were face to face, and this would have always been a novelty, whereas completely flipped now into that. And it's those skills, it's having the confidence to use those digital skills and use them effectively as well, are also important. And I think that's a challenge for employers, is to how to think digitally. How can what we do, how can we make it better, and what digital tools are out there? And I think certainly, again, we'll probably touch on this a little bit later on, but that sort of idea around digital leadership as well, that sort of comes into it, and how you think from the top down as well as from the bottom up in terms of digital. I think that's really important. I think as well, we've already touched on it in terms of the succession planning. That's really important. I think there is a lot of competition out there, particularly in the digital. You've got some companies that are offering astronomical salaries. How do you compete with that? And you start looking, actually, you can start looking at what are the values? Why do people want to work for me? And you start looking at it that way and sort of appealing on these levels as well. So I think that's a real challenge for people. And then once you have them, how do you retain them? And keeping them there is definitely a challenge. And I think so externally, it's around, we all want to live in a more sustainable, environmentally friendly world at the moment as well. So again, one of the challenges is how can we use digital? How can we improve our digital skills, digital capability that perhaps would make us more sustainable business, a more sustainable and environmentally friendly business as well? So it's looking at those and bringing those skills in. You have that challenge of, do I recruit? Do I bring somebody in that's fresh into this? Or do I look for someone who's got, already got the skill set as well? That's another challenge in terms of how you manage that as well.
Right.
If there's any questions on that.
Has anybody got any questions around that? Ryan's writing some absolutely fantastic points in the chat as well. I think I'll come back to them at the end of the discussion, because it feels like he's really recommending some really great things around the OU. So I'll come back to them towards the end. I mean, from my perspective, every time, when I think of the Open University, I do think of a degree. And that's quite a big commitment for employers and the staff. And aside from those sort of more traditional degree programs, what are the other ways that employers can engage with the Open University and access that higher education?
Yeah, so I think it's really important. Now we're sort of looking at how can we extend what we do, because I think degrees are important, they have a place and people do value them, but I also think there are people out there that perhaps are looking for something a little bit different. So it's what is it that HE can do to adapt to that? Is it that we look at sort of shorter accredited forms of learning? And certainly at the OU, we've been looking at a number of different options and how we sort of deliver those programs. And the first one, and since I've been at the OU, it's been one that we've been growing, has been around the degree apprenticeship space. And this is a program that gives people the opportunity to implement their learning into the workplace, but also at the end of it achieve a degree. So it's using that sort of traditional apprenticeship method, but also giving people that opportunity to perhaps achieve something they haven't done before. We've got people on the program who've never even dreamed of doing a degree, but are now doing that, but also working at the same time. So there's that, there's all funding and everything that's attached to that. So it's a fantastic opportunity, and certainly across Wales, not just at the OU, universities are delivering these successfully, and giving people a new way of really engaging in higher education. I think that's really important. It goes back to the point that was made earlier about that sort of the need for flexibility and the need to be able to balance learning and working, and apprenticeships do that, and in particular a degree apprenticeship. So that's one key area that we sort of feel that outside of maybe a more traditional degree, we've got these sort of work-based learning focused degree programs out there as well, which are really important. And then just beginning there, I noted about alternative ways of accessing HE, and perhaps looking at maybe shorter routes into education. So we have been, as a university, and it's ongoing, developing a new type of course they called micro-credentials. And these are short accredited courses that carry Open University credits. They generally take 10 to 12 weeks. They're undergraduate, they're also postgraduate level ones. And the idea is that they've been developed with experts at the OU. And whilst they have that academic sense, they're also geared more towards that CPD market as well. So I need to know this particular subject now. So for example, we've got one on Agile Leadership, managing in difficult times, which came out not long after the pandemic. So again, all sort of relevant, quite specific areas, as well as a big focus at the moment. And again, I'll include this in the link when after this discussion. There's quite a number of areas around this sort of digital space as well. So there are courses looking at key areas, of cyber, cloud technology, DevOps, looking at sort of operational management aspects as well, in terms of things like marketing and finance and the like. So quite specific. And again, another way of engaging in HE. Perhaps you've already got a degree and you're looking for something that's going to top up what you know, or perhaps something that you don't know. These are brilliant for doing that. And certainly it's something that's growing. We at the OU, we're developing a number of courses over the next 5 years to meet this sort of new way of people engaging in higher education. So they're geared towards future leaders. They're geared towards people that are perhaps new to the sector, perhaps people who don't know something about a certain area. They're brilliant for that. So it's definitely worth having a look at. And again, changing your perception perhaps of how you can get something from a university. It's not just about those sort of traditional degree programs, but obviously those have their value as well.
Yeah, that's great. And that's right. Rhys says we will share that information after our chat today as well. So if people are interested in that, we can share that. I'll just mention some of the points that Ryan brought up, because I've before I go on to like my final question to you, because that's a little bit wider. And one of the points that he makes is that he's found the Open Learn resources really useful for informal professional development, and there's a few courses on the Open Learn around digital health and that kind of topic.
Yeah, so I was going to come on to Open Learn. So I always like to leave Open Learn to the last, because it's a free resource. It's always you always want to give someone something for free if you can, and that's going to help them. So, but yeah, Ryan, you're right. Open Learn's fantastic. We've actually just had, I think it's 100 million visitors since it started. So that was a stat that went out, and it's which is phenomenal. We use that platform as a way of giving back to society, giving society an opportunity to try something, have access to higher education for nothing, essentially. There are over 1,000 courses on the platform, and it ranges from your business management, your ICT and digital, right through to languages, through to nutrition. Like you said, there are things there on digital health as well. There are also introductions into certain sectors, so you can have a look at that. There's quite a lot of content around employability skills and things like leadership and followership, coaching and mentoring, all those sort of softer skills that perhaps people want to develop. And what Open Learn does is it gives people an opportunity to say, I want to learn something. I want to learn something that is at a sort of a university level. And you can do that. It's round the clock learning, so you just log in, you create an account, and off you go. You download your course that you want to do, and you open it up, and everything's there for you. The best thing about it is they often will have links to Open University content. So you'll find that it will have a module, or it would be something that's spun out of a degree in a particular type of topic, and it gives people that sort of flavor as to what that is. So we talk about career changes now, don't we? And it's a really good opportunity that if you're not necessarily in a let's say a tech-related role, there are courses on there that sort of introduce you into computing, introduce you into coding, into data analytics, all those types of things in there. And then should you want to continue with that, then there will be an Open University module or degree that perhaps could scratch that itch for you and take you on a completely different path. And then the other side of it, it's a great way of, particularly people here who perhaps are looking at developing staff, it's a great way of offering something to them. Perhaps if your budgets are tight, Open Learn is a great way of just saying that we've got some content here that you could do. And we've built hubs and things like that with different organizations. So during COVID, right at the beginning, we worked with Careers Wales to provide content that would support furloughed workers. So we had content in there from Open Learn that people could just access for free, that was there to support them in their search for employment as well. So it is fantastic for that. But also, yourself, I'm looking at some Open Learn courses at the moment. For me, it's a sort of a venture back into learning. And that's what I'm using it for, is to get myself back into it in a sort of fairly informal way. And then perhaps looking at sort of project management, the thing I'm looking at. So perhaps there's something more sort of formal then following that. But so the Open Learn is filling that gap for me at the moment. So that is another useful way to use it if you're sort of in an hour about a subject. So yeah, it's a fantastic resource, as Ryan says.
Brilliant.
We're very proud of it.
We'll all be Googling after now to get.
Yeah, we'll send you the link.
Sign up. I'm sure lots of us have got New Year's resolutions around learning new things. Alan's put a really good question in the chat, and he's asking, are there collaborations or agreements between the Open University and health boards, as healthcare skills require access to patients and equipment within hospitals?
So we do. One of our sort of programs that we run is nursing. So we do offer nursing. So we have arrangements with them to deliver nursing programs. So that's something that we do. We're also working with, particularly on the degree apprenticeship, with health boards around Wales as well, offering the degree apprenticeship within the ICT teams as well. So certainly, if there are sensitive things that we need to do in terms of programs and delivery, we can discuss those and be more than happy to do that after today. Particularly if you've got some ideas in mind, Alan, please do let me know. More than happy to discuss that with you.
Thank you. So I've just got one final question from me. We often talk about the importance of digital leadership as a key factor in transforming businesses. What is meant by digital leadership, and how does it impact on businesses and organizations?
So I think the first thing here is, what is digital leadership? And I think it's not digital leadership from somebody in IT or the person that answered a query once and is now the person to go to for IT. It's much bigger. It's much bigger than that. And I think we found we released a report, and what it found was that 77% of Welsh business leaders who had invested in their digital learning were more likely to encourage employees to do the same. So it's about looking at how do you turn your organization into a more digitally minded organization, and that's sort of coming from the top and investing in your leaders in the business, embracing that change, embracing digital technologies, and embracing perhaps some of the benefits that digital can bring to a business. So it's not just about one person driving that; it's about the organization driving that across all their sort of different leadership groups, but sort of creating that culture really of a digital organization. So it really does need to come from the top, and making sure that if you're bought into it, then it's easier for that to cascade down to the business. So I think certainly digital learning is it's been a top priority for a while. I'm not talking about anything new here. I think people probably recognise that, but it is something that keeps evolving. And as an organisation, if you accept that, you identify that, and you work with it, you will continuously evolve with that. And it's important that leaders do the same. So your CEOs, your heads of departments, all the middle managers, but also then by doing that, if everyone's embraced it, you bring everyone with you and you move with the times as well. I think is why digital leadership really is important, and is much bigger than one person. It's a culture shift within that organization.
Well, as I said, that was my last question. So I'm just going to open it out now to anybody who's got any comments or wants to raise anything or wants to ask a question, anything at all. It's all very quiet now. Everybody asked the questions right at the beginning.
I don't know if I could ask a question to the group. Maybe I think with everyone that's on the call. I mean, how do you go about investing in your digital skills of your staff, and purely out of interest, what sort of things are coming up for you? Where are your gaps? Don't feel like you have to speak out. You can put it in the chat if you want. The impression.
I'll
Ryan.
on that then.
Right.
I've got my certificate as well behind me. Haven't long had it.
Brilliant, nice one.
You'll see the OU logo on there somewhere. So yeah, I guess in terms of skills gap, then I'm coming this from the Welsh Government. So I'm the head of digital health programs. So my team oversee digital programs across Wales within the health boards. And for us, it's having the people, I think, that understand that kind of strategic, transformative move, the shift needed in health, in digital, and that's quite a nuanced skill set, I think is the best way to put it. It's subset of subset of subset really. So it's having maybe it's those bits of all the things being joined together. So having an understanding of digital health and what that means and how that can help the patients, having an understanding of that strategy and that transformative bit and how those can join together on that kind of Venn diagram, if you like, of there's the bits in the middle. Because it is you can get digital health and you can spend loads of time studying that, but actually if you don't understand how to get to that from existing methods and existing delivery patterns, then it's difficult. And if you don't understand digital health, then the transformative strategic bit is nice, but it doesn't really, that's the subject and that's the method, if you like, and you need to understand how to join those things together.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm just sort of digesting what you've said there and just thinking about in terms of, I think it's really important here, isn't it, in terms of, I think it's the combination of those technical skills and the technical ability, but also softer skills, isn't it? And how do you develop those internally? And I think when you talk about some of the things there around processes and project management, it's perhaps understanding where you can develop the softer skills sometimes. I think particularly we've sort of find with the degree apprenticeship, one of the modules that we do, it actually addresses that. It looks at how, when you're working on a subject, how does that fit within the business? And they look at change, they look at project management, and they look at those methodologies, but also then how to articulate that wider in the business. And I think it is a challenge. I mean, how do you address that at the moment?
Well, I haven't got anyone to work with at the moment because we're short staff. But it's really right now the only opportunity we have, because we are so pressured, is kind of on the job kind of experience and bringing people in and saying, here's, giving them background and then saying off you go and just helping them as they go along type thing. That's the only way we have right now of being able to do that. But I mean, I'm on the technology management pathway, the MSc, and that's actually quite good because it gives you those softer skills, but set in the technology. It's not the digital health environment, but set in the technology kind of perspective rather than just a generic business kind of setting. So I think that's almost there. But if there's a version of that for health and technology, or technology health rather, I think that would be then that kind of good level of that middle management type level, I guess, within the NHS in Wales. Okay. And that digital perspective, having a health flavour of that, or even just a health module or something in that kind of pathway, that would help people join the dots together.
I like the sound of that. That sounds really good. And perhaps that's something we could pick up, because certainly if that's a gap with what you're doing, I'm assuming that's possibly across other areas within the NHS and within the health system in Wales. So certainly that's worth having a look at. And if it's all right with you, Ryan, maybe we can pick up after this. But because that potentially there's it could be a micro credential there. Again, there's other courses coming out, but certainly one of the things that we can do with Open Learn is we will, if there's an opportunity and demand, we can look at how we can work with organizations to look at content on Open Learn and see how we work around there. But certainly that is an interesting concept. I think, like you said, you've got something at that sort of more senior level, but more something on that middle management level. Certainly worth exploring. So yeah, thanks for raising that.
And Rebecca's put a note in the chat as well, which I think sort of reflects some of that discussion too.
Yeah, I think it's very much along the lines that Ryan just said, really. I think having been in that position and made that switch into this is that you've got your technical ICT teams who are experts in that field, but you don't want to waste their time sometimes by getting to the point of, you don't need to know the back end completely, but you need that amount of knowledge to be able to have that co-production between the soft and the hard skills. And sometimes you can go into meetings and be thrown by things like APIs and all the kind of stuff that we need to be able to look at and understand to be able to how we bolt all the bits of the jigsaw together. But it's that you don't want to necessarily become an expert coder, but I need the language skills to be able to work in partnership with those that have those skills.
Okay, yeah, and I think I sort of mentioned about micro-credentials earlier. It might be worth having a look at those and see if some of that might help, because that sort of focuses on a particular need and the CPD aspect of it. So that could work. Again, there are other things on Open Learn that might meet some, particularly around the sort of the language aspect of it. But also, I'll give you an example. So our degree apprenticeship program, we have people on that program who, Rebecca, sound very similar to you. They're not the IT team doing the work, but they're managing that project. So what they've done is they've looked at the degree apprenticeship from that perspective as to, they're doing degree is in applied software engineering, but they're doing it to understand what is it that the IT people are doing, to understand the language, to understand what coding is. So they can sort of see it from their side, as well as being able then to manage the project that's ongoing. So I think, again, it might be, this is really interesting stuff, really good stuff. So thank you for being so open about it. And then perhaps we could explore that to see if there are ways that we can support those people that perhaps need the technical knowledge, but not necessarily the need to carry it out. So yeah, let's connect on that as well. Maybe Della, there's something else in this. Maybe there's a workshop after this, I think, maybe with yourselves.
That'd be fantastic. Carla's got a question, so I'll bring Carla in now.
I know Carla.
Hi everyone. Hi Reese.
Hi Carla.
Really, I don't have the solution to what everybody's looking for, but I'm really interested to hear what everyone's saying around sort of the grey area in between being the technical expert and being sort of a manager. We're working on a pilot project in the minute in North Wales, and it's all around industry-led a training. So not necessarily qualifications, but it's giving people so the employer would provide us with a problem, and the courses are sort of created around it. So it gives people who aren't necessarily doing the technical roles the knowledge that they would need to interact and to make suggestions about changes that can be made around the workplace. So the problems that you guys are discussing now sort of mirror what we're being told in North Wales at the minute with the Skills Factory. Yeah, that was it really. I didn't want to just leave it. I was just trying to say this. Yeah, it seems to be a common problem, and we're trying to find ways around it at the minute by engaging with industry in the Northeast, which Reese knows a little bit about.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, no, Carla's right. It's a good project, and again, it is about giving people that perhaps don't have that technical knowledge. How can we support that? So again, as Carla's saying, it's not just restricted to health. It is much wider, and I think yeah, this has been really useful to hear that sort of firsthand on how you're all sort of finding that a big challenge at the moment. So yeah, so thank you for sharing those. And yeah, I think maybe we could do something, Dennis.
I definitely do. Alan makes a great point in the chat, actually, and this is something that I 100% agree with. And I'd love to be able to do something more about this too. I think that technology providers and NHS employees need to take a step towards each other, with business knowing more about healthcare priorities and healthcare staff knowing more about technology and how it works to better understand each other. And I think this is really, really key, because this is the key to the collaborative approach to understanding what issues are being seen on the healthcare side, and for healthcare staff to really understand what technology is able to do for them. So yeah, I couldn't agree more with that point. I think you've articulated it really well there, Alan, so I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I think that's important, isn't it? Is how can we learn and sort of create that almost community of best practice, isn't it, almost? And how do we do something like that? And I think this network, Della, is a good place for that, isn't it, in terms of the links that you have, and just almost sometimes it's about finding a gateway into something, isn't it, with like-minded people. And this certainly feels like it's maybe this is a good conduit to do that. Maybe that's a separate group. We've got that sort of connection side, but I think if you look at it, just going back to what Ryan and what Rebecca was saying, and obviously what Carla was saying, those issues that are being faced here from a health perspective, they're going to be there in other sectors, aren't they? And how do we do that? And how do we encourage people to be more digitally minded? How do we get people to understand what everybody is doing? Because I think IT has very much moved from being those people over there that you speak to when your computer's broken, to being crucial to how we do things more efficiently, how we do things more economically, how we do things more environmentally friendly. and it's just becoming more and more important, particularly when it comes to health. There's so many advancements going on that with AI and the like, that I think it is really important for industry and all sectors to combine and share that knowledge, isn't it? And bring those experts in to look at, this is how we discovered this solution to this problem, and share that thinking, share that process, share the journey of how did you transform digitally. And again, that's that could be really interesting. Really interesting.
Thank you. Has anybody got any other comments or questions? I can see something coming up in the chat. That's great,
My
isn't
chat
it?
disappeared. My chat disappeared from my team. No idea where it's gone.
It's great that the technology allows you to know when somebody's thinking of popping a question in. Oh, I think they might have decided against it now. Put the pressure on there. No, it's all disappeared now. No more questions. No more hands. No. Well, in that case, then I'll just say thank you very much to Rhys and to you all as well for engaging today. I hope you found it as interesting and as informative as I have. Rhys and I have had quite a few discussions over the last few months around this topic, so we were really thrilled to be able to come and bring it together in an event to sort of tell other people about it as well. And just to let people know that the ecosystem holds these types of events on a monthly basis, and the content is very much made up from the feedback that we receive from attendees and also through conversations that I have with people through the ecosystem. So please do let us know what you thought of today's event, and if you have any sort of topic areas that you'd